Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to edition number 96 of the Bill Crane Report with my friend Chris Gleason. We're here to educate you, inform you, amuse you, whatever. But first of all, friends, last episode was our special where we had some of Chris Labonte's movies on, and I finished up with a short bit of chatter at the end, and I talked about snapping turtles. And I meant to talk a little further about a couple of other visitors to your backyard, and that is skunks, coyotes, and fox. This is the time of year, maybe in another couple, 3 weeks, you're going to see fox. Especially if you have a lot that maybe backs up to some woods. And a lot of times, especially at my house, way up back along the stone wall, we'll see a mother gray fox go through around dusk. She's hunting for food for her babies that have been born and they're in the den. And as summer progresses, they're going to come out. Mm-hmm. And if you're lucky, she'll bring them along and you'll see them. And then come fall, they're going to be mostly full grown. And come October or November, she'll drive them away. And they're on their own. But right now, they're pups. They're in the hole. And if you see her, she's out feeding. She's out there trying to catch a bunny or a squirrel or something like that to bring back to the nest for the little ones. And coyotes are doing the same thing. On a much larger scale, coyotes are looking perhaps for a young deer or a house cat and bunny rabbits and things, turkeys. They're out hunting also. And the other neighbor that's liable to drop in is the skunk. Now people call the police. Oh, good Lord, heaven is henny penny, the sky is falling. I got a skunk in my yard. Well, skunk is about as dangerous as a kitten and just about as playful. They're there. They eat grubs that live in your lawn, bugs, things of that nature. Unless you walk at them and stamp at them and yell at them, they'll never, ever do anything except walk around, maybe dig a few holes in your lawn, little ones, feed, and they leave.
A neighbor's child picked one up and thought it was a kitty once. Yeah, kitty, kitty. And the parents looked at it and said, it's white stripe. It's not a kitty. But nothing came of it.
Nothing came of it. Wow. Wow. And the other point, too, is skunks are quite the mousers. They catch mice and eat mice, which is a nice byproduct also. And the poor mice, they're like God's creation. They're like bread for everybody else. The mice and the rabbits. He puts them out there for all the other animals to eat. But anywho, I just wanted to tell you, leave the skunks alone. Same thing I told you about the turtles. Leave them alone. They're up there to lay their eggs. That's it. Let them to it and let them go.
Not live and let die. Live and let live.
Live and let live. So I get quite a few things to talk about here. No particular order. But this is interesting. I thought this one. There's quite a hoorah going on at Harvard.
Really?
over admissions.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. They are concerned they have too many Asian Americans and too many whites. So they want to have Latinos and African Americans. But when they test, they get a much lower score, and they don't finish up high enough to be admitted. So they have decided now that, well, the heck with the tests. We're going to have a lottery system, and it'll be half lottery and half your high school scores.
So all those people who worked hard to get into Harvard.
Yep. They said it's too bad, but Asian Americans and white males are privileged, and we're not going to have that. Now they're trying to.
I wonder who is saying this.
The Harvard faculty, of all people.
Really?
Yeah. Asian Americans and white males are privileged, and their numbers entering college should be severely managed, and minorities and disadvantaged should be recruited in colleges in large numbers. I wrote a little note here to myself. This is stupid. This country needs smart people.
Right.
So we're going to bring people in who finished well down the scale for admission, and somehow or other we're going to bring them up to speed in 4 college years, when brilliant kids are kicked to the curb and said, go away. And yet we need smart people. We need people that are steeped in technology, and I don't know, this just doesn't strike me as being a bright thing.
I wonder if it will tarnish Harvard's reputation as high academic standing.
Not as long as they still have their huge pile of money and the name, you know. In Harvard, Ted Kennedy's living proof of this. I mean, you know, it opens all doors. When you have the degree from Harvard Business or Harvard Law School, you can pick your job, any job you want. I was listening to one of the talk shows the other night, and I wrote this down. I don't know who said it, but this is good. Life's hard, but it's harder when you act stupid.
It's harder when you are stupid.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, to me, that's one of the worst things to have. I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you're poor or your race or anything, but if you're stupid, you're really vulnerable to a lot of things.
You sure are, yeah. And you know, you try to work with people, educate them, help them, but there's some that just, but to put them in Harvard and say, get smart.
I wonder how many will drop out, or will they actually have remedial classes for these students?
I understand at Harvard. Now, you hear stuff like this in the heat of the rhetorical battle on television. But there are 3 marks at Harvard: A, A-, and B+. Heaven help you if you get a B+. So you're going to pass regardless.
Well, since the faculty are pushing for this, it's the faculty that give them the grades, so the faculty will make sure it works.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And if you disagree with the professor, you know B+ is in your future. If I had President Trump's ear, I would be running ads in the fall showing chaos and misery in Venezuela with the overriding message being socialism. This is what the Democrats are trying to sell you. Because we appear that the Democrats are hell-bent to put up a socialist.
No, but that's one country that has socialism. There are not some countries that have socialism that are successful?
I don't have any on the list. I mean, Cuba. And with that, in Central America right now, I think Ecuador and Brazil both have tossed out their socialist governments as not working. Socialism lasts until you run out of other people's money. Margaret Thatcher said that.
Yeah.
And by the way, socialized medicine has fallen on hard times in England too. There was an article, Wall Street Journal last week, and there are certain operations that they're no longer going to cover because they're running a deficit. So they've taken some operations that are not life-saving, like a hernia, for instance, and say, well, we're not going to pay for that. I'm not sure hernia was on the list, but it was that order of magnitude.
I know in Canada, personally, a family, his husband had a stroke, and because of his age, they would not give him any remedial therapy or anything like that because they said that was a waste of money because he's so old.
I had a friend of mine in Detroit, and he had relatives in Canada, and the guy needed a heart bypass operation, and they put him on a list and said 15 months. He came to Detroit, and I think it was either 3 or 4 days, and he had the operation.
Wow.
I mean, maybe it's working for them. Maybe they're happy waiting 15 months for it. Just doesn't make sense to me. Here's an interesting bit of statistic. Electric power generation in this country. 32% is natural gas.
Okay.
30% is coal.
Okay.
6% is wind. 1% is solar. Now, we're obviously missing some. There's nuclear, and there is oil-fired plants, and there's also, of course, hydroelectric plants. Yeah, so that wasn't factored in. But the point being that solar, for all the yip-yapping about it, is at 1%. Wind is at 6%.
Wow.
But the cost of wind is, well, the article I read, it says it's still 3 times more expensive than natural gas.
Oh, because the structures they have to put up and maintain.
Yeah. And
but I wonder over time whether that will, they don't have that initial startup cost anymore.
I think over time, as they develop huge batteries where they can store energy from the sun and tap it after dark, in the wind. They can store energy, and when the wind stops blowing, I think wind and solar will become more effective at that point. Well, we are 10 to 20 years away from that kind of battery.
To me, it's like alchemy, where they wanted to change metals into gold. It's like elusive. Can they ever really do it?
Well, they're having a lot of problems with the batteries.
Yes.
Tesla keeps blowing them up. Well, you put the bigger batteries in and you hope like hell it works, and then all of a sudden you get fires because it generates a lot of heat. Anyway, I'll get down to better stuff here. I just had some City Hall in Seattle, Washington, a most progressive town. They have a unique solution for homeless.
Oh?
You'll like this. They're going to put 120 to 160 beds in City Hall. So, some smart wag said, gee, you're treating the effect. Why don't you treat the cause? What's causing homelessness? Why don't we stop that?
Well, that's what that's always what I'm saying.
I mean, why not get in front of the problem? But these people here, well, we'll just put beds in City Hall. You think they're probably trying to shame people into voting for more housing for homeless people. But why the hell don't they come out and say it?
Every time you go to City Hall, you'll see them, but maybe they'll keep their eye on the politicians.
Boy, wouldn't that be a dream come true? But I
thought you were going to put them in jail.
No.
In jail cells.
Well, no.
Unlocked jail cells.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. But, in fact, that's not a bad idea at all. I know the couple of guys here, well, going back a few years here in Norfolk, I know there's a couple of guys that used to sleep overnight at the jail occasionally.
Well, that's what they did in the Wild West, didn't they?
Yeah. Well,
put them in the jail for the night.
I think it was part of it was one guy was having a little problem with mama at home and should throw him out, I guess. Anyway, but we'll always have the poor. We always have those who can't cope, who cannot function as a mature adult, who simply don't pack the gear, or who simply don't want to conform.
Exactly.
So our approach, kick them out to the curb and walk over them. We used to have mental hospitals to take care of those marginalized, many through their no fault of their own. So we closed them down to save money. How cruel, how selfish, how uncaring of us. When we had a vehicle to take care of those people.
Well, it's the same thing like in segregation, separate by equal. The thing is, what we should have done is improve the facilities themselves, because that was the problem.
Well, you say that. Yet, I had a special insight into Medfield State Hospital, because my cousin was the campus police chief over there. And he'd say to me once in a while, well, you say we swing by the hospital, I want to check, make sure the guards are doing, what they're doing, and blah, blah, blah. He said, we got some new pool tables in. He said, well, shoot a little pool. It's okay. So they were clean, they were comfortable, the people were happy.
Well, that's not what was put forth in the press.
I don't think so.
The press was saying that these people are pigeonholed and they're going to be there for the rest of their life and nobody wants to work with them to get them out of that situation. They say that they're filthy, they're not well maintained, the people don't care, the staff doesn't care about them. I mean, why? I mean, they was on like a big propaganda.
I would argue just exactly the opposite. What I saw was they were clean. They were marched into the showers on a regular basis. Their beds were made. They were changed. They were happy.
Well, that's one out of many.
Well,
there are other places besides Medfield.
But I felt all the people that I saw over there working over there cared about the kids. And that's what they referred to them as, was the kids.
Well, there's a woman who worked at Rentham State School. It's at the senior center, and she was very caring.
Yep. Yeah, there was a woman here in town, Mark Clark, who I swear to you was a saint. She worked over at Rentham State School. The things that she did over there, she loved those kids. And I think there's an awful lot of people like that, but I think there was an awful lot of propaganda put out to close those places because the politicians wanted them closed to save money.
But the thing is, the facilities are still there. A great many of them are still there, and they're not being used fully.
Well,
so how much really does it cost to, I'm sure now that they've all disintegrated and need lots of repair, things like that.
The Foxborough State Hospital has been converted over to office buildings and condominiums, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful. I heard this argument from another lady I was having a discussion with. She said they're ramshackle, they're falling in. Oh. I said, well, take a look at Foxborough State. Oh, that's the worst one of all. Don't tell me that. All you have to do is take a ride over there. They had open house back when they were building them. You could go in and look at them. They're beautiful. The buildings were built in 1896. Oh, gee whiz. They were built out of cement and brick and steel. They're still standing over there, and they're gorgeous. It all depends. Some people don't want a state hospital in their town.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So they're ramshackle. They're no good. They're falling down. The people are mistreated. Get them out of our town, not in our town.
You think we'll ever go back to that?
I'd love to. And I've read a couple of articles lately, including a big one in Wall Street Journal that says asylum, something that was a play on the word asylum. It's not a dirty word. You know, I think it's the best thing in the world. And you got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 people in there. Stage 1 are just in there because of various...
No place else to go.
Yeah. Stage 2 need help. Stage 3 are potentially dangerous and have got to be watched carefully. But that's where you put people like that. Yeah, I don't think it's right to put them in prisons because of mental problems. They have mental problems. We should try to help them. Not going to get any help in prison. They're just going to get worse and taken advantage of, too. China is an interesting problem. We're having talk of a trade war. And the reason the president pointed out the other day is when you go to China and decide to have a joint venture to build electrical cars over there.
Okay.
So you form a Chinese-American company, 50-50. They bring cheap labor, cheap materials. You bring engineers, technology, finance. So the company forms up, starts building, and before you know it, all the secrets have been transferred over to the Chinese. They've stolen all of our intellectual engineering. They've done it with electric cars, they've done it with railroad engines, wind turbines, and solar electronics. The president has said, this has got to stop. And that's part of what this trade war is all about. Look, you people got to sit down and negotiate with us because we're not going to do this anymore. You're stealing from us.
So how do you remedy it?
I think you've got to sit down and you've got to bargain with these people. But you've got to get their attention first.
Well, what you have is a leverage.
Hopefully, trade. You just say, well, look, we're not going to allow you to bring steel into this country. We're going to put a 25% surcharge on it. And then it's sort of like, it's sort of like a game of chicken. Who blinks first? But somehow or other, You have got, we also have got problems over there with the military. I mean, they are encroaching on international waters with their planes and warships and harassing American freight. So there's all sorts of things going on over there, aside from just tariffs. But
I don't see how a tariff is going to solve the situation. I can't understand it.
It's an economic tool. Let's hope it can, because we can't continue to give away all of our intellectual property.
And you think a tariff will stop that?
I think the tariffs on other goods will.
I can't see how you could possibly protect the technology and the intellectual, I don't know what they call it, expertise, I guess. But you can't protect it. It's not, if you're over there, I mean, if you have a Chinese worker working on the things, and you have thousands of Chinese workers.
It's not the workers, it's the engineers that have access to the technology for building this stuff. They're the ones.
Well, China doesn't see anything wrong with them taking that information.
Well, we do.
Right.
And the World Trade Organization does.
So what is the fear that we have?
That they will steal all of the work that we have done and replicate our products and send them to this country at a much cheaper price.
Okay.
So
I can see a little bit of a connection there.
So in other words...
But the thing is, if we don't buy it, okay, then the Chinese people can't work.
Right, but they're selling it all over the world too, Christine. I mean, supposing they replicated a Caterpillar earth mover, all right? And we said, all right, we're not buying it. Don't send it here to this country. Oh, okay, well, we'll sell it in India. So we'll sell it in Burma.
Well, that's just the same as having a tariff. They wouldn't sell it here, they'd sell it someplace else.
Right.
But to me, China, this is not really something new for China. China has systematically planned, you could almost see the plan. They're taking over the iron ore, they're spreading out, they're taking over the resources that they need to produce. And now, over the years that they've got these resources, now they're taking over the information to use the resources. So China is going to be a mega powerful
They plan
company.
by 2050 to be the world's greatest economic power.
I don't doubt it. I think they'll make it too, because they've been working on it for years.
As long as we allow them to steal our technology, they'll make it. It's got to stop.
The only way to stop it is not to have the Chinese American companies. We need to find a different partner besides China.
That will steal our technology. Now, we've done a poor job protecting ourselves.
I wouldn't be surprised that China just said, okay, we're taking over all the...
Nationalizing everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, there's quite a patent for that. In the long run, that doesn't work.
Because?
It
stagnates you. You don't move any further ahead.
Mexico nationalized oil. Well, they're not producing any oil now because all the oil platforms need repair. They need maintenance. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to go out and discover new fields of oil. They don't know how to drill. They're just a mess. And thankfully, no one's helping them. And so now all of a sudden, well, maybe we'll let Exxon come in and maybe we'll let BP come in. Well, Exxon and BP would be damn fools to go in because once they fixed everything, it's out the door again. By the way, Venezuela is just about in total chaos. The money now is officially worthless. They're producing little, if any, oil, same problem, and they have got huge resources of oil. They can't do anything with it. Amazing. Did you see where the Massachusetts Supreme Court threw out the idea of a millionaire's tax?
No.
Well, these initiative petitions are getting to be, it's a fault of the legislature. They can't get anything done. So people get mad and they go out and get 250 or 300,000 signatures, and you get the question put, or binding referendum put on the in the fall election.
But then they don't honor it. They don't honor it.
Well, they have to almost.
No, I've heard that there's been binding things that they did not follow through with.
The damn few, I'll tell you. I was involved in a couple of them, and we were just hung out to dry once they passed. But they decided that were going to have a referendum petition to add a 4% surcharge to the Massachusetts state income tax for people with income over $1 million.
That will never pass. Because
the
people who are going to pass it are the ones that are millionaires, so why would they tax themselves?
Well, the millionaires just only have one vote, too, just along with the poor, unwashed people have one vote. No, they were afraid like hell this was going to pass. I mean, this was probably going to be a slam dunk. Well, how many people do you know that would say, screw the millionaires, let's grab an extra 4% off them. What have they done for us lately?
Oh, you get a lot of people to say that, but they are not the people who are in power, and they're not the people who make the laws.
But they're the people that vote. And if you have an initiative petition, it has to go on the ballot. If it goes on the ballot, that was going to be a slam dunk. So the Supreme Court intervened and killed it. But I had my own solution for this. I don't think that we need to collect another $2 billion and give it to the legislature. The way they spend money, and as corrupt as they are.
And they're giving themselves pay raises frequently.
Nope. I would collect the $2 billion if that were the case, and I would reduce it down to 12 one-month intakes. So in other words, for the month of January, we'll have one pile of money. Month of February, we'll have another pile of money as we collect income taxes, and of course, I mentioned, actually, probably this would more or less take place mostly around tax time. But anyway, we'd take the whole pile of money and divide it into 12 pieces. And we would give 1/12 to Catholic charities, 1/12 to Children's Hospital, 1/12 to the Jimmy Fund, 1/12 to the American Cancer Society, 1/12 to American Heart Association, 1/12 to the Salvation Army, 1/12 to St. Jude's Hospital, 1/12 to Alzheimer's Research, 1/12 to the homeless centers in Boston, Francis House, Pine Street Inn, Rosie's Place, 1/12 to a sort of quasi sort of fund for Massachusetts highways, and 1/12 to the Bill Crane Fund.
Well, I got lost at the beginning. Where are you going to get this $2 billion from?
It'll be the 4% surcharge on millionaires' taxes.
So they're going to pay it like an estimated tax every month?
No, I just divided it down by 12. We'd get a great big lump of money in April 15th, that would go in the tax coffers, the 4%, and then we'd take 1/12 size pieces of pie out of it and give it to all these good organizations. You'd rather give it to the legislature.
No, first of all, I think the 4% is too scary. I think like they do when they increase your wages. 1% the first year, an additional 1% the next year.
Oh, yeah, you know that's going to come. But so what? This is
And then the
millionaires.
other
They
thing
can afford
is,
it.
you can't designate it to those charities or whatever, because that's plain favoritism. All those, who's to say that one charity is more important to give? Those are 12 that you picked. Somebody else may choose.
I don't care about what anybody else picks. All I care about is what I pick.
So you're going to have all kinds of problems here of who picks them.
All right, then I'll solve it totally. It all goes to the Bill Crane Fund, and I'll dole it out. Yeah, that takes care of that. No problems at all. What percentage of American people are satisfied with the direction of our country? I'll give you a hint. It's a 12-year high. Right now,
That's
it's a
because the economy is
high.
doing well? Repeat the question again.
What percentage of the people polled are satisfied with the direction of our country? It's a 12-year high.
40%.
38%. Very good. Very good. Especially the blue-collar workers who are spending money.
And that's a high.
That's a high. Now, that doesn't speak well for how satisfied we are with our government. Our power costs in this country versus Germany, 1/4 of what Germans pay for power.
Really?
That is a tremendous manufacturing advantage. Manufacturing plants need a lot of power.
Why is Germany so high?
We have got a lot of sources of cheap power in this country.
So, in other words, we have more natural resources than
and Germany has
does.
none. They have. Well, that's what killed them in World War II. They had no place to get oil. They had to invade Romania and get the Romanian oil fields. I mean, they bought a little here and bought a little there, but on wartime footing, they never had enough power. I mean, they had a wonderful Air Force, and they couldn't afford to fly them.
And machinery.
Yeah.
Weapons.
Yep.
Outstanding weapons.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We have a big advantage over much of the rest of the world as far as power costs. Now, the tax cut has generated a lot of enthusiasm for the economy. So much so that SSI, the disability portion of Social Security, was supposed to be in trouble beginning in 2023. It has now been postponed to 2032, 9 years out. This boost in the economy has solidified
because
SSI.
they're taking in more tax money.
Yep. So, amazing. I'll give you another thing on the economy. Guess what's booming? The sale of engagement rings at Tiffany's. And Tiffany is the high end, company. Well,
maybe Tiffany's doing good advertising.
I think it's the folks that are well-to-do buy at Tiffany.
Oh, sure.
Well, they certainly wouldn't go to Joe's Jewelry in Walpole or something. They wouldn't be caught dead there.
Well, art is also very high, too.
Yes, it is. Collectibles. The whole collectible market, yeah. I have got to change the subject to something dreadful. I'll give you this instead. They did a poll, and it was by Bill Clinton's pet pollster that he used through his entire political career. And they did some polling recently. What percentage of the U.S. say, if they're here illegally, send them back?
I have to say 50% because I can't make up my mind.
Well, but it's not your mind that we care about right now.
I know.
It's everybody else's out there.
But I'm like a typical average American.
Yeah. 64% of America says they're here illegally, they're broken our laws, out.
So 50 isn't that far off.
No. What percentage of the Democrats say send them back?
40.
48. So this is a very telling poll. It's the only way we can proceed. We can't give amnesty to 11 million people that broke our laws coming here.
Want to bet?
We better not.
Well, I think we are. Just de facto.
I hope not. I hope you're totally wrong. In Wyoming, if you look at 100% of their arrests, what percentage involve alcohol or drugs?
70.
80%. That's an unbelievable number.
Well, there's nothing out there but drugs and alcohol.
Cows.
People are bored. What else? What can they do for excitement? They take drugs
God
and alcohol.
help us. I had something else that went along with that, and I can't find it, so I'll find it eventually here. Probably, of all the things going on right now, probably the worst remarks I have heard come from Democrats who are saying terrible, terrible things.
About what?
Well, Peter Fonda. You know Peter Fonda?
I've heard his name.
Jane Fonda's brother? Henry Fonda's son?
Okay.
Am I rung any bells yet?
Well, I know the names, but I don't know the people.
Well, he's a Hollywood actor.
Well, I realize that. And so is Jane, and so was her father.
Yeah. Peter Fonda apologized Wednesday for a late night Twitter rant, whatever the hell Twitter is, I don't even know, in which he suggested 12-year-old Barron Trump, President Trump's youngest son, should be ripped from his mother's arms and put in a cage with pedophiles.
Oh, jeez. That's sweet.
Isn't that something?
Why on earth would he say that?
Because he's an ignorant SOB. In another tweet, after he apologized, he suggested that people opposed to the border policy should track down the addresses of federal agents and surround their homes in protest, adding, "We should find out what schools their children go to and surround the schools in protest."
He's a terrorist.
Yep.
He needs to be locked up. He's dangerous.
The First Lady's spokesman, Stephanie Grisham, said this tweet is sick and irresponsible. The Secret Service was notified, and Donald Trump Jr. tweeted to Fonda, "You're clearly a sick individual who behaved like a bully and a coward."
Where did he say these remarks?
On Twitter remarks.
Oh, Twitter.
But he said, I tweeted something inappropriate and vulgar about the president and his family in response to the devastating images I was seeing on television. You know, a lot of those pictures of the border were taken years ago. I mean, and not only that, but this border policy about separating the families originated with George Bush and Obama. Yeah, that was their policies. I mean, the father breaks the law, the mother breaks the law. You can't put the kids in prison with the father and mother. Maggie Hassan.
So this is an example of the power of the press.
This is an example of the left-wing power, yes. Right-wingers, well, I guess it's hard to... The left has been most demonstrative in their remarks. I mean, Maxine Waters' remarks. I mean, it's ridiculous. But this is good. Maggie Hassan is the senator from New Hampshire.
Okay.
And her intern she's an intern for Maggie
State
Hassan.
senator or federal senator?
Oh, she's a federal senator.
Okay.
And down in Washington, at a gathering, she screamed out at President Bush, F you. Well, Maggie Hassan put her foot down quick. She suspended her for 1 week.
Oh, big deal, 1 week.
Yeah. Now that is really dynamic action on her part. Wow. That's another subject for another time. Here's something I get bothered by. This child...
So few things bother you.
This one bothers me for another reason. Not my usual reasons. This guy has raped between 50 and 100 boys. He's got a record that goes 9 miles long. And so by his own admission, he's also suspected in 50 to 100 assaults on young boys, according to his own lengthy history. And he's been eyed in the disappearance of a Lawrence boy in 1976. Anyway, he habitually raped a child.
Okay.
And he's been in prison for the late 70s for a rape of 2 boys in Lawrence. And he did his sentence, but he's been in civil commitment because he's been judged a dangerous person.
Okay.
So they can hold him, the parole board.
Okay.
Now, 2 psychiatrists looked at him and said, because of his age, he's no longer a danger to do this. They recommended parole. Now, this is something that the defense has. They can do this, get the 2 psychiatrists rule, and if they both agree, so they say, we're going to free him. Well, there's an outcry. People are saying he belongs in prison. He's dangerous, blah, 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 blah. While in prison recently, he's exposed himself.
Right.
You heard about
I heard that.
Yeah. And was doing other things. So now they're indicting him on a new charge of lewd and lascivious behavior. And if he's found guilty, he will be hit with the 3 strikes law as a habitual sexual offender, and they can put him away for another 20 or 30 years. Now, Here's the only thing I concern myself with. Are they doing this for the right reasons? Or is this another way of getting around the old, I know he's guilty, so why don't we plant some marijuana on him and arrest him? Because he's been a dealer for years. I'd hate like hell to think that we are subverting the law here, even though it's in the best interest of everybody to put them away and keep them away. But is this the right way to do it? Is this for real? Or are they saying, look, we got to keep them in, so let's cook something up?
I think the problem lies in the psychiatrist did a misdiagnosis.
I agree with you, and I think everybody agrees with you. Yeah. There's another way around this too.
Plus, the thing is, you almost think the guy was just waiting for the opportunity to get out of jail so he could continue his behavior.
I don't know.
It makes you wonder how much you can know about another person just by talking to them over a short period of time.
I agree. Yeah, I just don't like this whole thing, the way this is working out. I agree. Listen, put him back in and throw away the key. I don't have any problem with that.
But your problem is you think that the trumped-up charges were made just to get him back into jail.
I just have a stinking suspicion that they've found an easy way to deal with this problem.
So age doesn't matter when it comes to sex.
I don't know. I do know this. I don't want to live in Methuen, Massachusetts. They either have the biggest bunch of idiots up there, or else, I don't know, it's cosmic intervention or something. They have a new contract for the police department. And the outgoing mayor says, oh, this isn't how it was, I signed it, but that's not how it was explained to me. And, well, this is how it figures out. Oh, well, no, I had nothing to do with this. And so guess what? Effective yesterday, a captain, and there's, I think, 5 of them, on the Methuen Police Department. Now, Methuen has 50,000 people.
Okay.
A captain was making a damn good salary, $153,585. Under the new salary and the new math that they created, and by the way, they passed this not knowing what they were voting for. Gee, have we ever heard that story before? The captains are now going to go from $153,000 to $432,295 annually. The lieutenants are getting a 104% raise from $132,000 to $269,000.
I want to apply.
Would you be happy being a sergeant and going from 110 to 160?
Not as happy. No.
Not as happy. The cost of the raises, effective July 1st, on an annualized basis, $3 million. The new governor, or the new mayor, said that the salaries are such that they may have to ask for a state loan.
Why can't they change the salaries? Do they have a union?
They have a union, and it's all signed and passed by these idiots. But here's what they did, though, because they are so out of balance, and you're going to love this. There's a total of a $6.5 million shortfall already in the budget. So, here you go. They laid off 52 public school teachers, 9 school administrators, and additional support staff.
Now we need those police to do.
The gap has already prompted city officials to discuss a $4 million loan from the state. Now, you know, back in the old days, they used to have the Duncan stool and the stockades, and they used to burn them at the stake. But can you imagine the outgoing mayor saying, "Oh, I didn't know what I signed. It wasn't explained to me properly." The firing squad. I mean, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just great stuff.
So who voted that in?
The city council.
So I go after the
Three
city.
of which had relatives on the police department.
Somebody's awfully good with their math.
Whoa, boy. Well, you know what? We are winding down, so we have one more question for you.
Okay.
Should Massachusetts reinstate the death penalty for those who murder police officers?
No way. Why should that police officer be any more important than any other
Because they're
person?
the sign of authority. And
Nope, I
they
don't.
they are protecting and serving us, the public. And you know, this phony business about it doesn't prevent murder is wrong. It does. That guy will never murder again that is electrocuted. Bingo.
I don't go along with that. I think a person's life is just as important as any other person's life. If you say that, then what about firemen? They preserve and protect the public.
I agree. But they amend that to firemen, I would agree with that. But it's almost a sport now of shooting policemen.
Well, there have been a lot of problems.
They sure
lately.
have. I do have an article here.
One other thing, I don't think it should be automatic.
Well, no death penalty is automatic. It's always reviewed over and over and over. But I think the death penalty should be reinstated. I really do. And I got one more thing. It's an opinion column, and I think it's going to be a great one for you and I to talk about. The frightening decline of America's boys.
Americans.
Boys.
Oh, I brought that up one time.
Yep. This was in last week's pilot. And this is very interesting. Would you like to take that and read it?
I would love to read that.
And I'll tell you what, I'll give you another one to read. And these will be the first two that we talk about next time. Great. This woman was a pot smoker, and they legalized marijuana in Massachusetts,
right?
But not at her company. And she had to pass a test, and she couldn't, and they fired her.
Wow.
So we need to talk about that.
Right.
And I'll give you one more.
Oh, no.
Weak gun laws in New Hampshire and Maine fuel crime here. It's ridiculous. You can read my rebuttal to that.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've watched us prepare for next week's show. You must be tingling with anticipation.
Suspense.
We'll be back at you in a couple of weeks, and you'll find out all the good stuff that I gave Christine. So, on that note, it's about 96 degrees out here today. So, it's plenty hot. So, drink plenty of fluids. I would recommend Budweiser and Miller High Life. And on that note, good night.